Good evening, I'm Farhana Sheikh. Here are the top stories for tonight. Trump says Gaza ceasefire still in place despite Israeli strikes. And Zelensky is ready to join Putin-Trump summit if invited. That and more coming up on AWANI International. US President Donald Trump says the Gaza ceasefire remains in place despite a new wave of Israeli strikes. The latest attacks began in southern Gaza on Sunday after Israel claims two of its soldiers were killed in a Hamas operation. Israeli airstrikes that followed killed at least 42 Palestinians across the enclave. The Gaza Media Office says 97 Palestinians have been killed since the ceasefire took effect on October 10th. Now, both sides are accusing each other of violating the truce. Hamas says it remains committed to the deal, but warned that Israel's actions could push the situation toward total collapse. Israel, meanwhile, has reopened the Kerem Shalom crossing for aid, but said the Rafah gate to Egypt will remain closed until further notice. Meanwhile, Trump's special envoys Steve Witkoff and son-in-law Jared Kushner have arrived in Israel. They are leading Washington's ceasefire negotiation efforts and will meet members of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he is ready to join Russian President Vladimir Putin and US counterpart Donald Trump at their summit in Hungary if he is invited. The Ukrainian leader, however, criticizes Budapest as a venue for talks, insisting negotiations must take place in a neutral country.
He listed Turkey, Switzerland, and the Vatican as alternatives. Hungary has had tense relations with Kiev and is widely seen as the EU's most Moscow-leaning member. Trump and Putin are expected to meet in Hungary's capital, Budapest, within weeks, as the US president pushes for a peace deal to end the 3.5-year war. Meanwhile, ahead of an EU foreign ministers meeting in Luxembourg, the bloc's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, said Trump's peace push is welcome, but stressed Zelensky must meet Putin directly for talks to advance. She also criticized Putin's expected visit, saying it is not nice to see a man wanted by the International Criminal Court hosted in an EU country. Kallas also said the EU's 19th sanctions package on Russia is likely to be approved this week, and she will also propose work on a 20th round targeting those supporting Moscow's war effort.
US President Donald Trump has also called for Russia and Ukraine to freeze the war along current battle lines, a move that would leave Moscow in control of vast occupied territory. He denies urging President Volodymyr Zelensky to cede all of Donbass, but says the region should remain divided as it is, with most of it under Russian control.
He added that the two sides could resolve the details over territory at future talks. Trump's comments came after a tense White House meeting with Zelensky on Friday. It marked a sharp shift from his stance in September, when he said Ukraine could reclaim all its territory occupied by Russia. Zelensky had traveled to Washington, hoping to build on Trump's mounting frustration with Vladimir Putin following a failed summit in Alaska. Instead, he left empty-handed, failing to secure long-range Tomahawk missiles from the US, despite weeks of lobbying. He later announced that Ukraine is preparing a contract to purchase 25 American Patriot air defense systems, which are expected to be delivered over several years. Trump, who has repeatedly vowed to end the war quickly, is now expected to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary in the coming weeks.
That's our top news. Stay tuned for more after the break.
gempur di AWANI 745.
Welcome back. United States President Donald Trump warns that India will continue to face heavy tariffs if it fails to end its imports of Russian oil. Trump insists that he has spoken with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on halting Russian oil imports, despite India's assertion that it was not aware of such conversation.
I spoke with Prime Minister Modi of India, and he said he's not going to be doing the Russian oil thing. So that's it.
But why would India say that they're not going to do?
I don't know, but if they want to say that, then they'll just continue to pay massive tariffs, and they don't want to do that.
Russian oil remains a major sticking point in US India trade relations, with Trump imposing a 50% tariffs on Indian goods for its continued purchases of Russian petroleum. Last week, a White House official claimed that India had already halved its Russian oil purchases, but Indian sources have disputed that, saying there is no immediate sign of a reduction. Now, the US and its Western allies have been stepping up pressure on India to curb imports of Russian oil. As the world's second largest buyer of Russian energy after China, can India afford to scale back its dependence on Moscow? Dr. Rahul Mishra from Jawaharlal Nehru University shares his insight.
For India to completely stop buying Russian oil is something that is not possible in the short run. It will take at least 18 to 24 months for India to substantially reduce importing Russian oil. So at the moment, it is not a possibility. What is possible is that, and that's my second point, the possibility is that India tries to diversify its oil imports, energy imports, which means that a substantial outcome or a substantial promise has to be made by the American side, and India and America come to a settlement on their outstanding bilateral issues, whether it is tariffs or issues related to Indian skilled workers working in the U.S. Or just the overall confusion between the two top leaders. So I think that's very important. The third point is that even if India reduces the supplies substantially, the prices. So the hypothetical scenario is that India reduces imports from Russia and starts buying American energy supplies. Even in that case, the prices have to be competitive. And I don't think at this moment there is any other country in the world, and Malaysia, I think, is also experiencing the same thing. There is no country in the world which can give a more competitive or lower price than what Russia is offering.
To tighten pressure on Russia, Western nations have threatened punitive measures such as sanctions and tariffs against countries that continue to buy Russian oil. But Rahul notes this may be easier said than done, adding that India has historically been prepared to face such measures.
I think this idea of the UK or European Union imposing sanctions on India or taking punitive measures is something that has to be taken with a pinch of salt. Because India and UK have already signed a trade agreement, which is almost comparable with an FTA. So, having signed an FTA, UK has to walk out of the agreement to impose sanctions. Likewise, the EU has been working very hard to sign an FTA with India. That again is something that they have to discard if they want to impose sanctions. With a wider Europe, other countries of Europe, Scandinavian countries, India signed an agreement. So how do they move forward on that front? Is something that has to be considered, and this is on the technical ground. The second, so far as the sanctions and restrictions and punitive measures are considered, I think 3/4 of independent India's history, that is from 1950s to up to 2002, India was under sanctions by the Americans, by the Canadians, by almost all the Western countries. And it is only past 20 years that these sanctions were eased out and India sort of became a close partner with the US. So Indian experience is quite good in dealing with these sanctions and imposing of so many restrictions.
US President Donald Trump says he will raise tariffs on Colombia and cut all financial aid to the country. His comments comes after President Gustavo Petro accused the US of committing murder when it carried out a military strike on vessels allegedly involved in regional drug trafficking. Trump's remarks mark a sharp downturn in relations between Washington and Bogota. He added that the details of the new tariffs would be revealed on Monday. At present, Colombian exports to the US face a 10% tariff in line with Trump's broader global trade policy. In response, Colombia's foreign ministry pledged to seek international support to defend its president and the country's sovereignty. Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party and the Japan Innovation Party have signed a coalition agreement, paving the way for Senator Takaichi to become the country's first female prime minister. The last-minute deal was finalized just one day before the lower house vote on her appointment.
According to the party, the deal includes strict timelines and detailed policy goals, among them a proposal to cut the number of lawmakers by 10%. The new alliance gives the two parties a combined 231 seats in the lower house, just two short of a majority. This virtually guarantees Takaichi enough support to win Tuesday's parliamentary vote to choose Japan's next prime minister. In the event of a runoff, she would only need a majority of votes cast, not a full majority of members. Even so, Takaichi will still need cooperation from other opposition groups to pass key legislation, including the upcoming supplementary budget.
China's economic growth has slowed to its weakest pace in a year, with official data showing GDP expanding to 4.8% in the third quarter, down from 5.2% in the previous quarter. However, much of this growth remains heavily reliant on exports, renewing concerns over structural imbalances and long-term sustainability of China's recovery.
China is still targeting a full-year growth of around 5%. Despite tensions with Washington, Beijing has managed to diversify its exports with shipments to the EU, Southeast Asia, and Africa rising even as sales to the US fell 27% last month. But a sluggish domestic market remains a major drag. Retail sales slowed to a 10-month low of 3% in September, down from 3.4% in August. Analysts say weak local demand is forcing manufacturers to compete more aggressively overseas, often cutting prices and accepting slimmer profits to hold market share. Meanwhile, calls for deeper structural reforms have grown louder. Economists are urging Beijing to boost household consumption and reduce reliance on external demand. These issues are expected to take center stage at this week's key Communist Party meeting, where leaders will outline the next 5-year development plan.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has accused Western media of using their global influence to spread what he calls false moral values while silencing opposing views. Speaking at RT's 20th anniversary event, Putin claimed Western outlets hide behind objectivity while shaping global opinion to serve their own political and economic interests.
He went on to criticize what he called the hypocrisy of Western elites, saying they speak of democracy and free speech, but actively suppress voices that challenge their narrative. Reflecting on the early 2000s, Putin claimed this was a turning point when Western media began using news coverage to promote a new global ideology. He also accused Western broadcasters of referring to terrorists involved in attacks on Russia as insurgents, saying this portrayal was meant to evoke sympathy for violent extremists. The Russian leader said defending national sovereignty also means ensuring Russia's voice is heard on the global stage. He added that RT's expanding international reach has unsettled Western competitors, suggesting they are uncomfortable with alternative viewpoints gaining traction worldwide.
That wraps up AWANI International for tonight. Stay with us as we track the rivalries, strategies, and power shifts shaping the new global order. For more updates, visit international.astroawani.com and follow us on our social media accounts. I'm Farhana Sheikh, and on behalf of the AWANI International team, we would like to wish those celebrating a happy Deepavali. Thank you for watching and good night.